I'll never forget the first time I heard someone laugh at the word sinigang. To them, it sounded foreign, strange, even a little funny. But to me now, it's the taste of belonging, the flavor of love wrapped inside a steaming bowl of sour tamarind broth. And if you'd told me back then that the same people who mocked it would one day fight for the last spoonful, I would have laughed right along with you. It all started in the most ordinary way. A pot simmering on a stove, a Filipino woman stirring slowly as the smell of garlic, onion, and tamarind filled my kitchen. Her name was Liza. She had joined our household during one of the busiest years of my life. With 2 kids bouncing between school, soccer, and piano lessons, and my husband working long hours, I felt like I was always on the edge of collapse. Liza, soft-spoken but steady, arrived like a calm breeze. She didn't impose, but she had this quiet way of just noticing what needed to be done. One snowy evening, she asked if she could cook something special. "What is it?" I asked, curious. "It's called sinigang," she said, her accent lilting gently. "It's a Filipino soup. Sour, a little different. Comfort food from home." The kids, overhearing from the living room, giggled. "Sinigang?" my son repeated, the syllables rolling awkwardly off his tongue. "That sounds weird." Liza just smiled, completely unbothered. "Maybe it will taste weird too," she teased, her eyes twinkling. "But maybe it will taste like love." As she started unpacking the ingredients, my daughter wrinkled her nose. "What's that?" she asked, pointing to the pale green long beans and a knobby white root. "Radish," Liza explained patiently. "And these kangkong leaves." "You," my daughter said. "That looks slimy." They both started laughing, covering their mouths. Even my husband, peering into the pot, chuckled. "Sour soup? With vegetables the kids won't eat? Good luck with that." Liza just kept smiling. She didn't defend it with big words. She just kept stirring, letting the steam fog up the kitchen windows as that tangy tamarind scent filled the air. I'll admit, even I was skeptical. The aroma was strong, sharper than any chicken noodle soup I was used to. But when she finally set the bowls on the table, something shifted. The broth shimmered, a golden brown flecked with herbs. Tender pieces of pork were nestled among the vegetables, the radish translucent, the eggplant softened, the beans still a bright green. Steam curled upward like a beckoning hand. "Try," she urged gently. My kids exchanged looks. My husband raised an eyebrow, and then, with the kind of theatrical hesitation only children can pull off, my son lifted a spoonful to his mouth. He tasted it. His face puckered instantly at the sourness. "Whoa!" he exclaimed. "That's different." My daughter dared to try it too, and she shrieked, laughing at the tang. "It's so sour!" They both dissolved into giggles, and even I couldn't help laughing along with them. It was sour, more sour than anything I'd ever had in a soup. But underneath that tartness was something deeper, a warmth, a richness that lingered long after the sour punch faded. I went back for another spoonful, then another. The tamarind was startling, yes, but it woke something up in me, a craving I didn't even know I had. By the 3rd bite, my spoon was moving faster. "Wait, this is actually good," my husband admitted, surprised. He reached for a second serving, this time ladling more pork into his bowl. My kids, sensing they might have misjudged it, began competing for the pieces of tender meat. "I want that one," my daughter Lily shouted, stabbing her spoon toward the bottom of the pot. "No, that's mine," my son Noah cried, lunging across the table. Their earlier laughter turned into a squabble, not because they hated the dish, but because suddenly they couldn't get enough. The soup that had been mocked as weird was disappearing faster than any meal I'd cooked all week. By the time we scraped the pot clean, the kids were arguing over the very last piece of pork, both refusing to give it up. My husband, laughing, settled it by splitting it in half. And when Liza leaned back, her hands folded in her lap, I noticed her eyes were glistening. "You like?" she asked softly. We didn't just like it, we loved it. From that night on, sinigang became more than just food. It became a ritual. Every time Liza cooked it, the house filled with that sharp, comforting aroma that made us all gather instinctively at the table. And with every bowl, the laughter grew. The friendly fights over the last bite continued, and our family found itself wrapped a little tighter together. But it wasn't only about the taste. Over time, Liza began to share the story behind sinigang, how it was the dish her mother made when the rains fell heavy in the Philippines, how the sourness felt like a warm embrace after a long day. She told us about sitting with her siblings around a small wooden table, dipping rice into the broth, giggling just like our kids did. Her stories painted pictures of palm trees swaying, rain drumming on tin roofs, and her mother's gentle voice urging everyone to eat before the soup cooled. She wasn't just feeding us food, she was feeding us memory, heritage, and the comfort of knowing that in every culture, love is ladled into bowls. One afternoon, my daughter surprised us. For a school project, she had to share a recipe from another culture. Without a second thought, she told her teacher, "I'll bring sinigang." The day of the project, I watched as she proudly explained tamarind paste, the vegetables, and that sour-salty balance that made it so unique. Her classmates wrinkled their noses at first, the same way she once had. But when the teacher dipped her spoon in and nodded with delight, the others followed. Soon, the pot was empty, her classmates clamoring for more. "They said it was weird," Lily told me afterward, beaming. "But then they were fighting over the last bite." It was a perfect echo of that first dinner with Liza, and I felt my heart swell with pride. This dish, once mocked, was now becoming part of our identity. Even my husband's colleagues weren't immune. When he brought leftovers to work one snowy day, they teased him at first. "What is this sour stew?" they joked. But by lunchtime, they were circling his container like sharks, dipping bread into the broth, stealing spoonfuls until there was nothing left. He came home shaking his head, laughing. "I didn't even get to finish my own lunch. They devoured it." The story of sinigang spread beyond our home. Friends who visited on weekends started requesting it. Neighbors who used to stop by for coffee now lingered, hoping to catch dinner. It became our signature dish, though it was never truly ours. It belonged to Liza, to her homeland, to the generations of mothers who had simmered tamarind broth for their families. But perhaps the most moving moment came months later, on a night when Liza sat quietly at the table after dinner. I asked if she was all right. She smiled, but her eyes shone with unshed tears. "It's just, when I see you all enjoy sinigang, it feels like home is here too," she whispered. I reached across the table and took her hand. "Home isn't just a place, Liza. It's people. And you've given us more than food. You've given us family." That night, as the kids argued playfully over the last spoonful in the pot, I realized sinigang had become a symbol, not just of cultural pride or culinary adventure, but of the way kindness, patience, and tradition can turn strangers into kin. So yes, they called it weird. They laughed at its sourness, its strange vegetables, its unfamiliar name, but in the end, they all fought for the last bite. And hidden in that fight was something bigger than appetite. It was love, shared across borders, spooned out one serving at a time. And every time I taste that tangy broth now, I remember that sometimes the things we mock at first become the very things we can't live without. Because sinigang isn't just food, it's proof that laughter, family, and kindness can travel across oceans, carried in the steam of a humble bowl of soup. Thanks for listening to our story. If it made you smile, or maybe just a little hungry, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.